Well, so the EBA has been in existence since 2011. And today I was talking about stress tests, and stress tests have been a key tool for us, I think, in the regulatory and supervisory community to address the need for repair in the EU banking system. So in 2011 we did a stress test and followed it up by a recapitalisation recommendation which saw capital rise in the EU generally. In 2014 we did a stress test supplying a non-performing loans definition which allowed supervisors to reclassify loans in a asset quality review and then do the stress test and understand the resilience of the system. And then in 2016 we did another stress test which looked very much at issues around profitability and allowed supervisors to use that in the SREP process. For us, transparency is also very importantly associated with stress testing, and actually on Friday the 2nd of December at 9 o'clock UK time we'll be releasing up to 10,000 data points for over 100 banks as part of our transparency work.
And how will it go on then? What are the challenges in that?
Well, I think the challenges now that we see are a mixture of addressing the overhang of non-performing loans, which at 5.5% across the EU is generally high, and with some countries up to 45-50% is an area that really needs to be tackled. It needs to be tackled through supervisory work, it needs to be tackled through addressing structural impediments in legal systems, and we need to see a better functioning secondary market. That's what will allow European banks to return to possibly more sustainable profitability.
What's the importance of stress tests? What can it bring?
So stress tests allows us to look beyond what we think is going to happen over the next year, say, and really think about what will happen if things go wrong, because we need to make sure that our banks are resilient both in good times and bad times, and we know from recent experience that we need to make sure there is adequate capital to deal with unexpected events. And whilst a stress test won't necessarily capture what is going to happen, we don't know what's going to happen, it does tell you a degree to which there is resilience in the EU banking system. And now with common equity capital up from under 9% in 2011 to over 13% now, equivalent to the largest US banks, at least we have a feel that there's a degree of cushion in there, so that if things go wrong again in the economy, our banks will be able to continue to lend as productive lenders into the real economy.
And what were you said you had three main messages. What were they?
Well, today I was talking to, I think, people in banks who are dealing with risk assessments and stress testing. And my three messages were the following. One is that stress testing is very important, but is not the only tool in the supervisory toolkit or for risk managers. So we need to see stress testing in the context of broader risk management. Secondly, we really do focus on improving banks' own stress testing frameworks as part of assessing their risk management systems. So, they shouldn't leave it to the supervisors. It's really important that they have good risk management systems and stress testing frameworks themselves. And the third message was explaining a little bit about how we are using stress test results ourselves, including setting Pillar 2 requirements for risks not covered in Pillar 1. So if your credit needs extra capital for concentration risk, we raise that, but using stress tests to set Pillar 2 guidance, which is different. It's not a requirement, and it doesn't feature in what we call the maximum distributable amount calculation.
And you talked as well about risk management. You mentioned it. What has to be considered with regard to risk management?
Well, there's a lot of moving pieces in risk management, but let me talk specifically then about the stress testing framework as an example of what we want to see, because we want to see clear objectives and an appetite set. We want to see an appropriate framework and appropriate infrastructure. So you need the right data infrastructure for your type of bank, you need the right people, and you need to be doing the right types of assessments for your type of bank. And then governance is key. And what we see by governance is that senior management really should be able to ask the tough questions. So they should be able to engage, they should be able to question, and then they should be able to take action as a result of the findings. And those things are really, really important. And that's what we want to see improve.
And how can this maybe be improved with a conference like this?
Well, I think the joy of a conference like this is it allows a diversity of views to be expressed. You get different ways of looking at things said in a very free and open dialogue. And I think what's really important is that we all talk and we all listen. And it's from that. And we had a long discussion on proportionality, for example, just now, where I heard some new ideas being put forward. And I think those are things that we can reflect on, take away and discuss in our own constituencies.